He doesn't have class but can use any S-rank skill. In this world, everyone does a ritual to get a class once they turn 10 years old that allows them to learn class skills. Errol is an ugly, disgusting loser who just turned 10 and is about to go through this ritual. His family is eager to see what kind of class he will be given, but Errol couldn't care less. The priest announces the ritual will begin and asks the kids to step forward. The first candidate steps up anxiously, and the priest touches his forehead with the tip of his middle finger. He feels the heat of flames and smells the smelting of iron. He also sees a vision of a hammer and announces that he is a blacksmith. The boy runs back to his father with excitement because he is also a blacksmith. The priest continues the class selection and gives the kids their different classes. Astaire, Errol's sister, informs him that a person's lineage determines the class they will receive. She is certain he will get a good class because their parents have advanced abilities. Errol is next in line, and the priest informs him that he will see a vision of his class as he touches his head. However, the priest is confused because he didn't get a reaction from Errol like he did when he touched the other kids. The priest realizes there's only one explanation. Errol is classless. Errol returns home with his family and buries himself in sword practice so he can get stronger. His parents console him and promise to work as adventurers till the last day they breathe, so he doesn't have to work menial jobs. Ariel waves off their condolences because his classlessness doesn't bother him. He reminds them that he has been practicing his swordsmanship since he was old enough to wield a sword. He admits it would have been easier for him to get stronger if he had been blessed with the swordsman skill, but he won't let that discourage him. He is grateful he knows how to wield a sword properly, and he plans to work hard to become a hero. Arel's parents are impressed with his dedication and insight at such a young age. They are certain he will make a good name for himself when he gets older. Arel leaves them and heads to the practice fields to continue his training. When he gets there, he finds two boys sword fighting. One of the boys recognizes him as the classless loser and wonders what he came to do on the practice fields because it is only used by swordsmen. Arel reveals that he came to train just like everyone else, but the boy reveals that swordsmen don't need to train. They only come to the practice fields to show off their skills. He decides to give Errol a demonstration of their skills, and the boys continue their sword fighting. Arel is impressed because their basic swordsmanship skill makes them capable fighters. He challenges them to a bout, and they laugh at his stupidity. They point out that a bout between a swordsman and a classless clown parading the practice field with a sword will be a massacre. Arel maintains his position and insists it will be a good match. The boys become annoyed by his insolence, so they decide to accept it and put Errol in his place. The first boy asks Errol if he has the divine protection blessing the goddess gives everyone at birth. This protection shields the body from damage, but taking too many hits can make it run out. He's not so sure Errol has it since he is classless. Errol confirms that he has it, so he doesn't have to worry about being charged with homicide. The first boy reveals that he won't hold back now that he is certain he can throw Errol around as much as he wants without fear of jail time. Errol warns him to expect the same treatment, but the boy takes it as an insult. He charges at Errol with his sword, and Errol parries effortlessly. The first boy crosses swords with Errol again and tries to overpower him, but Errol's strength gives him a reality check. The second boy orders his friend to stop toying around and finish Errol. The first boy reveals that he is trying, but Errol is stronger than he imagined. He invites his friend to join the bout so they can overwhelm Errol with their numbers. The second boy attacks from behind Errol, but he gets out of the way before he lands his hit. Their team-up doesn't faze Errol because he is eager to get more practice out of people closer to his skill level. Errol figures out that tactics isn't one of the skill sets of the swordsman class, so he decides to use it to his advantage. He charges at the boys and they prepare themselves for his attack, but he suddenly disappears. He knocks the second boy down with an attack from his blind spot. The first boy tries to avenge his friend, but he trips, and Errol knocks him down with the flat side of his sword. Errol declares his victory, but the boys refuse to admit they lost. They claim that Errol cheated because he only attacked when they dropped their guard. Errol doesn't mind going another round to prove that his victory wasn't a fluke. A red-headed swordsman walks in on them and scolds the boys for whining, because if it were a real battle, they would have been done for. The first boy tries to talk back to the redhead, but his friend stops him because he is the son of Captain Evans, who is the head of the guards. The redhead walks up to Errol and acknowledges that he inherited some innate talent from his mom, unlike the two chumps he just put to sleep. He challenges Errol to a bout and promises to show him the abilities of a true swordsman. The redhead holds a grudge against Errol's mom because she is considered the best swordsman in the village instead of his father. Errol realizes that Redhead wants to take out his anger on him. Redhead reveals that he has been a swordsman for a year and now has intermediate skills. His revelation doesn't faze Errol because his mom taught him everything about the sword, and he doesn't intend to disappoint her. Redhead charges at Errol, but he blocks the strikes and pushes him back. Redhead goes back in with multiple sword strikes, but Errol counters each strike. The spectating boys wonder if Errol is really classless because he is easily countering a swordsman with intermediate skills. Errol silently acknowledges that Redhead is stronger than the two losers, but his emotions make him sloppy and vulnerable. Redhead lashes out in anger at Arel and he dodges. He sees an opening and goes in for a strike, but Redhead uses a twin blade strike. Arel manages to block one of the slashes but gets hit by the other one, which sends him flying into the wall. He walks over to Arel to claim his victory, but acknowledges that he isn't a pushover. Some days later, Arel wakes up and heads downstairs to get breakfast. After breakfast, his elder sister tries to convince him to rest for the day instead of going out for training. She assures him that he will always be safe because she will create a world free from evil. Arel ignores her big words and heads out for special training. Aster is worried about him because he has been consistently coming home late after the day he was beaten up. Farah assures her that Errol can handle himself. She takes her to the basement where Errol keeps a chest. She opens the chest to reveal a bunch of broken swords Errol used to practice his swordsmanship. Aster is convinced that she has nothing to worry about, but she is still determined to create a world where Errol doesn't have to worry about his classless status. Meanwhile, Errol continues his training in the forest. He takes several swings at the tree trunk. Then he unleashes a twin sword strike. He is pleased with the progress he has made in his training. All the hits he took from Redhead while they were training finally paid off. A goblin suddenly springs from the bushes and attacks Arel from behind, but he turns and cuts it down with his twin blade strikes. Arel suddenly hears a terrifying roar from the forest. He wonders why such a huge monster is so close to the village. He decides to head back to the village and inform the guards, but he hears a human voice crying out in panic. Errol realizes that he doesn't have the luxury of time. He decides to face the monster because he is certain he is strong enough to defeat it. Arel walks to the source of the human voice and peeks through the bushes to find Redhead in a bad state against a hobgoblin. He spots a practice board on a tree and figures out that Redhead was practicing just like him when the monsters ambushed him. He decides to wait for an opportune moment to defeat the monster. The hobgoblin bears down on Redhead and raises its club. Redhead is too exhausted to do anything but offer a silent prayer of forgiveness for disappointing his father. As the hobgoblin brings down his club, Errol cuts it down with his twin blade slice. Errol gives Redhead his holy water to cure his injuries and restore his divine protection. Redhead drinks it and recovers, but he immediately confronts Errol about the skill he just used because only skilled swordsmen can execute it. Errol admits that the technique is complex, which is why he devoted extra time and effort to learn it. Redhead doesn't understand what Errol is saying, so Errol explains that he figured out the secret to the technique was harnessing the power of the sword's momentum. He thanks Redhead for constantly using the technique when they sparred, which allowed him to discover its secret. Errol reveals that he has been training to master the technique because he didn't want to lose to Redhead in their next bout. Redhead is impressed with Errol's dedication and decides to test the fruits of his training. Errol is skeptical about getting into battle with Redhead, but Redhead insists because he wants to repay his kindness. They take their sword stance and execute twin blade slices at the same time. Arel's attack deflects Redhead's slice and lands a hit on Redhead. Redhead is surprised he still got hit somehow, and he wonders if Errol snuck in another attack while he was distracted. Arel reveals that a third slice from his twin blade strike hit him, and Redhead calls him out for it because it is supposed to be 2 sword slices like the name implies. Arel reveals that those rules don't apply to him because his strike isn't based on a skill. This gives him freedom to modify his techniques as much as his abilities allow. Redhead doesn't believe Arel because it makes no sense for a classless loser to have a stronger technique than an established swordsman. Errol is tired of his whining and challenges him to a bout to test out who is stronger. Redhead hastily accepts and makes a mental note to keep an eye out for Errol's third attack. They take their sword stance and cast twin sword slices, but Arel's strike is faster than Redhead's. His strike cancels out Redhead's slice, and the third strike targets Redhead. Redhead manages to raise his sword to block the strike, but the force sends him to the ground. Arel walks over to Redhead, and Redhead admits defeat. A few days later, Arel had some tea with his family at night. Farah reveals that Redhead set out for Brescia, and Arel wonders what's so special about Brescia. Farah explains that Brescia is the city of swords where she used to work in the past. Arel is eager to visit Brescia and improve his swordsmanship. He is determined to find out how strong he can get without a class. Arel boards a wagon with other swordsmen and some kids, and they head to the city of Brescia. After traveling for a while, the coachman informs them that they are approaching their destination. The other swordsmen are surprised to learn they are all headed in the same direction. Purple introduces herself to Leather as a dual swordsman, and Leather introduces himself as a barbarian. Purple notices his harsh tone and wonders why he is having an attitude when they are both advanced swordsmen. Leather points out that he doesn't like hanging out with people who expose themselves to the world. Purple reveals that she dresses lightly because it suits the speed needed to utilize her class perfectly. The coachman settles their quarrel by commending both their offensive powers. He suddenly stops the wagon and reveals that they now have a chance to prove their strength. Leather looks ahead of the wagon to see a horde of orcs led by a king orc blocking the road. He begins to panic because they don't have the strength or resources to take down such a monstrosity. The children in the wagon beg him to save them. but Leather ignores them because he knows fighting the orcs is suicide. Purple also follows him because she doesn't want to risk her life for kids that are not even hers. The coachman decides to abandon the wagon and run for his life since there is no one to protect them, but Errol suddenly steps out of the wagon. The coachman tries to stop him because it is too dangerous, but Errol ignores his warning. He rushes at the orc horde and uses his blink skills to dash through them as he cuts them down. The coachman is impressed by Errol's skill, but he suddenly gets surrounded, and he wonders how he will get out of the orc formation because his blink skill is now useless. Errol spins with his sword and performs a blade dance, which clears out the orcs. The coachman can't believe his eyes because the blade dance is a legendary skill that can only be performed by the Blade Princess. Arl moves on to the king orc to attack him, but the king orc attacks first. He swings his mace and brings it down on Errol, but Errol jumps into the air and sinks his sword into the orc king's head. Errol walks back to the wagon and informs the coachman that he has eliminated all threats on the road. He urges him to continue to Brexia because he needs to continue his sword training there so he can become stronger. The coachman teases Errol that he doesn't need to visit Brexia because he is already strong enough. The kids are so impressed by Errol's skill that they wonder what his class is. Errol informs them that he is classless, and they're surprised by his confession. Errol enters the wagon and they resume their journey. Errol dozes off and dreams about his interaction with Farah. While he was out training outside his house, she walked up to him as he performed the twin blade strike. Farah can't believe her eyes, so she assumes she is dreaming that Arl became a swordsman because she can't accept the reality of his classlessness. Errol informs her that she is not dreaming, as he mastered the technique after weeks of training. He asks Farah to teach him all the princess sword techniques she knows, so he can also master them and then put himself to the test in Brezia. The wagon coachman wakes Errol up and informs him that they have arrived at Brezia. Errol steps down from the wagon and observes that the people in Brezia are all high-level swordsmen, just like the coachman. The coachman denies being a swordsman, but Errol insists he is a swordsman because no commoner knows that much about sword techniques. The coachman admits that he is a holy knight. Errol wonders why an advanced class swordman is driving a coach, and the coachman confesses that he is so tired of battles that he decides to take a leisurely job. He informs him that the swordsmen in the city are there to take part in the swordsmanship tournament and get their hands on the prize money. He advises Errol to join a guild so he can become eligible to register for the tournament. Errol reveals that he is also there to take part in the tournament, but he would like to spar with the advanced swordsman before that. The coachman bids him farewell and advises him to be careful about his guild choice, because there are some bad guilds in the city. Errol walks into the city to see different guilds advertising to swordsmen so they can join their guild. A lady sneaks up on Errol and tries to catch him from behind, but he dodges her by sheer luck. Errol hears her trip and fall and he turns back to check out what is going on. Lilia gets back to her feet and looks Errol over. She notes that she has never seen him in the city before, so she assumes he is a new swordman looking for a guild to join. Errol confirms that he is looking for a guild. Lilia is happy because she is coincidentally looking for members to join her guild. She presents Arl with a guild contract, but Arl declines her offer and walks away. Lilia chases him and demands an explanation for his rejection without reading the terms of the contract. Errol reveals that he already figured out that she is the head of a weak guild, which is why she is desperate to recruit new members. Lilia tries to put on a show and lie that her guild is quite powerful, but Errol sees through her act. Lilia finally drops the act and decides to sweeten the deal for Errol. She offers to go on a date with him for a day if he accepts her offer, but Errol immediately declines because her chest can be mistaken for a chopping board. He asks her about the biggest guild in the city. Lilia is annoyed that he still dares to ask her for information, but she answers anyway. She informs him that the strongest guild is the Black Bear with 8 A-rank swordsmen and gives him their location. Errol heads over to their residence and informs the guard at the gate that he wants to sign up. The guard directs him to the reception and informs him that he has to take a test before he can be accepted into Black Bear. Errol joins the queue and waits for his turn. When he reaches the receptionist's desk, the receptionist asks him for his class because only advanced swordsmen are accepted into the guild. Errol informs him that he is classless, and the receptionist immediately asks him to leave because taking the test will be a complete waste of time. Errol insists that he is confident he can pass if he is allowed to take the test, but the receptionist refuses to bend the rules for him. Errol decides to apply for another guild, but the next guild also rejects him. Errol tries all the other guilds in the city, but he gets rejected every time. Errol sits on the city steps, disappointed that he couldn't even pass the document processing stage of the application. He suddenly remembers that Fair gave him a letter of recommendation to apply to her former guild. Errol realizes that his mother already figured out that he would have a hard time finding a guild, so she made plans to ease the process. He decides to find the location of her guild, but Lilia confronts him again and tries to convince him to apply to her guild as no one else is accepting him. Errol ignores her and walks away, but Lilia follows him and keeps pestering him to join them because they are critically short of members. Errol refuses and Lilia resorts to desperately begging him on the street to join them. Errol still refuses, and Lilia wonders if he is a heartless devil. She offers to do anything he wants to make him accept her offer, but when she looks up, Errol is gone. However, Lilia is determined to continue disturbing him until he joins her. Meanwhile, Errol is off looking for his mother's old guild. He arrives at the approximate address, but he still can't find it. Lilia comes out of nowhere and asks him to check out her guild since it is close by. She points out her guild, and Errol notes that the guild is large, but wonders why such an established guild is lacking members. Lilia admits that the squad has lost its glory, but she plans to restore its fame and re-establish it as a notable squad. She promises that the name of the Dragon Fang Guild will strike fear in the hearts of their foes, and the Dual Sword King will reign supreme again. Arl realizes that that's the same guild his mother was in, so he decides to join Lilia. She takes him inside the guild and shows him around. Lilia's dad gets up from the couch because he is surprised to see a new member. Lilia notices the bottle in his hand and reminds him that the doctor warned him to stop drinking, but he shuts her up. Arl figures out that Lilia's dad is the Dual Sword King, but he is missing an arm. Lilia's dad advises Errol to forsake the Dragon Fang Guild because it is about to collapse, and he walks out. Lilia reveals that her father used to be a top swordsman, but after he lost his arm, he began drowning himself in alcohol and lost all social standing. She is certain Errol won't want to join the guild after what he just witnessed, but Errol insists that he still wants to join. After all, he doesn't have a choice because no other guild accepted him. Lilia hands him the guild contract, and he signs it. Lilia looks through his details and notices that he is classless. She warns Errol to stop joking about something so serious, but Errol shows her his card to prove that he is classless. Lilia threatens to hurt Errol if he doesn't retract his acceptance into her guild. She reminds him that he needs to possess swordsmanship skills to be accepted into a guild. Lilia breaks down because she was embarrassing herself on the streets for a classless loser with an ego. She screams out of frustration because she has no idea what to do to stop their guild from collapsing, since Errol will obviously be of no use. Reiner walks in to check on Lilia because she heard her scream. Lilia reveals that she is frustrated because they got a new member, but he turned out to be a classless clown. The description sounds familiar to Reiner, so she looks at Errol and confirms her suspicions. She reveals that they are from the same town, but Errol doesn't know her. Reiner insists that they sparred 5 years ago in their home, but Errol denies knowing a beauty like Reiner because he would have remembered it for life. However, he admits sparring with Redhead, who was Evan's son. Reiner reveals that Evan only had one daughter, and that was her. Lilia is curious if Errol is the classless swordsman that Reiner lost to. Reiner admits that he is the one, but she declares that she won't lose to him again like she did 5 years ago. She invites him to the training room downstairs to have their long overdue rematch. Errol follows her without question, and Lilia gives the signal to begin the match. Reiner attacks with her twin blade strike, and Errol wonders why, especially since she knows he can nullify it. He counters with his own twin blade strike, but Reiner's attack dispels his slashes and hits him. Errol is surprised, so Reiner explains that her sword is 5 times as strong as her previous sword. She advises Errol to adapt because he can't bet her with the same technique from 5 years ago. She vows to defeat Errol with the new power skill she obtained. She attacks Errol, but he blocks her attack, and they cross swords. Errol praises her for putting in so much effort that she obtained an advanced skill. Reiner ignores his flattery and continues slashing at him. Errol blocks the slashes, but he backs off because he will lose if he keeps taking attacks like that. Errol points out that he doesn't think it is wise for her to show all her cards so quickly, but Reiner insists that she will win regardless. Errol reveals that she won't hit him with any attack if that is her speed limit. Errol's big words pisses Reiner off, so she lunges at him and knocks his sword out of the way before slashing him. She is convinced she landed a hit, but Errol's image disperses and he attacks her from behind. Reiner tries to understand what just happened, and Errol reveals that she attacked a shadow. Reiner has a hard time processing his statement because he shouldn't be able to pull off shadow skill since it is a supreme level skill. Reiner attacks Errol wildly, but he dodges her attacks and fools her with 2 shadows to land a hit. However, he notes that his hit barely did damage against her divine protection. Reiner is certain she can still win the bout because Errol hardly does any damage. She attacks him with all her strength, but Errol counters and knocks her down. Errol acknowledges that she is strong, but he points out that he has long surpassed her strength. Lilia rushes over to give Reiner holy water to restore her divine protection and scolds Errol for making her cry. Reiner insists that she is not crying, and she runs off. Lilia and Errol return to the guild common room. Lilia officially welcomes Errol to the guild, but Errol is curious about the guild's status because she said it would soon fall apart. Lilia reveals that they are in debt, but she remains optimistic because a guild competition is coming up the following week. Errol wonders why Reiner is still sticking around despite the condition of the guild. Lilia reveals that her dad took her in when other guilds rejected her, and she has been a member ever since. Arel concludes that they can clear their debt if they win the competition, but Lilia isn't so optimistic because they will be competing 3 against 5. Sad, Arel is looking forward to fighting against strong people so he can get stronger. That is the reason he came to Brescia. Lilia's dad eavesdrops on their conversation because he is curious about Arel and how strong he can become. Arel wakes up the next morning and remembers that he is now part of his mother's former guild. He walks downstairs to see Reiner and Lilia sitting in the common room. Lilia welcomes him, but Reiner doesn't utter a word, so Arel concludes that she is still holding a grudge against him for her humiliating defeat in their duel. Lilia announces that they will be entering the upcoming guild tournament over the weekend, since they meet the minimum requirements to register. Arel doesn't know much about the tournament rules, so Lilia decides to give him a breakdown. She explains that the tournament is a one-on-one elimination-style match, and the guild with no members at the end of each duel loses. She also explains that guild teams are limited to 5 members, so they'll need to put in extra effort since they are a team of only 3. Reiner doesn't fancy their chances in the tournament, but Lilia assures her that they are unlikely to be matched up against an A-rank swordsman. Arel doesn't understand the ranking system, so Lilia explains that heroes are ranked from D to A ranks, with the strongest swordsman ranked as A rank. She points out that there are about 500 swordsmen in Brescia, and only 20 of them are A rank. She reveals that both she and Reiner are B rank swordsmen, and she assumes he also falls into the B rank since he defeated Reiner in their duel. She is certain they will make it through the tournament if they don't get matched up against an A rank. She decides to go over to the Colosseum and check out the tournament brackets, so she can know which guild they'll be facing off against. Reiner tries to leave Arel in the common room, but he demands to know where she is going. She reveals that she is going to train. Arel wonders what skills she has as a power swordsman besides her brute force skill. Reiner reveals that she possesses the Guts skill, which makes her divine protection last longer than that of an average swordsman. Arel fancies her skill, and he wishes he could learn it. He walks up to Reiner and sincerely begs her to hit him with her sheathed sword. Reiner refuses because she doesn't want to do him any favors, but Arel insists because this is a good opportunity for them to build a lasting relationship. Reiner misunderstands Arel's intentions, so he explains that he wants to obtain her Guts skill indirectly by getting her to hit him with her sword repeatedly while his divine protection is down. Reiner scolds Arel for being so dumb that he forgot skills are blessings from the goddess, and not something that can be chosen freely. Arel reminds her that he learned the Twin Blade Strike and the Shadow skill without getting blessed with it. Reiner still isn't convinced, so they go down to the training grounds, and Arel draws her sword with ease. Reiner is surprised that he can handle her sword so well without the brute force skill. But Arel reveals that he has more brute force than she does because he built it up while learning his other skills. He reminds her that effort can match talent with dedication, and Reiner is convinced. She decides to help him with his training but warns him not to complain because she won't hold back. She begins smacking Arel with her sword, but Lilia suddenly comes running in a panic. She reveals that they were matched up against the Black Blade Guild, who are currently the strongest party in the city with 8 A-rank swordsmen. She is certain the guild boss will pit their strongest members against them, but she is sure they will win if they take them on as a team. She suddenly notices that Arel is beaten up, and she assumes they got into a fight, but Reiner explains that they are undergoing some special training. Lilia doesn't buy her story because it just looks like she is using Arel to relieve stress, but Arel suddenly gets back to his feet and announces that he is going out for lunch because he is hungry. A few days later, the guild competition day arrives, and the trio heads to the Colosseum. Arel isn't too impressed by the people lining up to take part in the competition. Lilia overhears some spectators choosing the Black Blade Guild to win the match against them, and she gets pissed. She starts to approach them so she can give them a piece of her mind, but Reiner stops her. Arel is surprised to learn that people can bet on their matches. Lilia reveals that the odds of their match are 1 to 20 in favor of the Black Blade, which means that nobody expects them to win. However, she sees it as a grand opportunity to become a billionaire. She reveals that she took another loan with the Guildhouse as collateral and bet everything on them to win their match against the Black Blade. Reiner isn't too happy with her plan because they will be in a worse situation if they lose, but Lilia points out that they will be in a bad situation if they lose, so it's better to go out with a blaze of glory. Georg, the boss of Black Blade, suddenly approaches her and mocks her for wasting her time trying to uphold her father's guild. Georg is curious because he heard that she recruited a classless swordsman. Lilia wonders if he only approached her to gloat, but Georg reveals that he only came over to cheer her on because he feels bad about the current state of her guild. He reveals that he did her a favor by using his influence to make sure their guilds were matched up against each other. He explains that he is allowing them to get back in the spotlight and get some serious paycheck if they somehow manage to defeat the A-rank swordsman he has chosen to face off against them. Georg begins to laugh at their ridiculous odds of pulling off a victory, but Lilia insists that they will win. Georg decides to indulge in her delusions and wishes her the best of luck as he walks away. Arl and Reiner see through Georg's fake kindness because it is obvious he is doing everything to eliminate their guild. Everyone enters the Colosseum and takes their seats as the announcer declares the start of the tournament with the match between the Blackblade and Dragonfang. Arel, Reiner, and Lilia stand in the middle of the Colosseum grounds as the Colosseum screen displays the names of the fighters from the Blackblade. Arel notes that Georg isn't on the list, so he concludes that they are holding back against them, but Reiner clarifies that they are using a more aggressive lineup because Georg isn't one of the 5 strongest swordsmen in the guild. Arel is eager to get the battle started because he wants to pick up some new, interesting skills from their opponents. Lilia warns him to take the match seriously because the fate of their guild rests on it, but Arel points out that she is in no position to give him advice because she bet all their money on the match without consulting them first. The sister announces the first matchup will be between Geo and Arel. Everyone is surprised that Arel is classless. They write him off as a joke who has a death wish. Geo is pissed off because he finds it insulting that he is facing off against a classless loser despite being an A-rank adventurer. He would rather have fun with the ladies, but the match kicks off, and Geo strikes immediately. He uses a blink dash to close the distance and thrusts his sword into Arel. Lilia warns him to be more careful, but Reiner points out that he is unharmed. Arel's shadow disintegrates, and Geo figures out he is using his shadow skill. He strikes at Arel behind him, but it turns out to be a shadow. 3 Arels surround Geo, and he assumes one of them is the real one because it is impossible to create 3 shadow images. He tries to find the real one, but they begin attacking him. He fends off their attacks, but the real Arel attacks him from behind. Geo can't believe what just happened to him as he loses consciousness, but Arel reveals that he learned the skill from Farah, who can make up to 5 after images. The sister declares Arel the winner, and the crowd erupts in a cheer, but they can't believe that Arel is really a classless swordsman. Lilia and Reiner are impressed with Arel's performance, but Arel is more interested in getting back to training as quickly as possible so he can imitate Geo's thrust sword strike. He looks forward to the next matchup so he can pick up more skills. The next contender steps up and the match begins. The swordsman tries to attack Arel, but he blocks his attacks easily. He counters with his twin blade strike to knock out the swordsman. The next contender steps up and feints with his dagger while attacking with a kick. Arel uses his shadow skill to sneak behind him and knock him out with one strike. Lilia cheers Arel on so he can take out the last 2 members of the Blackblade. Reiner scolds her for leaving everything to him, but she admits that Arel is the only one among them who can take out the A-rank swordsman, so she is giving emotional support. Shield steps up as the next contender, and the fight begins. He scolds Arel for lying about his class, but Arel insists that he wasn't lying. He attacks Shield, but his attack barely does any damage because of his high magic protection. He decides to wear it out with persistent attacks, but Shield scolds him for complaining when he shouldn't even be a match against him. Arel reveals that he earned his place in that duel by putting in tremendous effort, but Shield insists that effort can't outweigh talent. He attacks Arel with a sword feint and uses his shield bash, but Arel sees through his feint and knocks the shield out of his hands. Now that Shield is exposed, Arel is confident he can win the match. He imitates the kick used by one of the swordsmen he fought against, and Shield points out that he has seen that technique before. Arel admits that he can pick up some skills after observing them once. He walks over to Shield's shield and picks it up. Arel's arrogance pisses Shield off so much that he attacks him, but he parries his strike. Arel uses his shadow skill and imitates Shield's shield bash technique to knock him down. The sister announces him as the winner, but the spectators begin to protest. They label Arel as a fraud because they can't comprehend how a classless swordsman took down 4 A-rank swordsmen in a row in record time. The sister consoles the crowd and reveals that the tournament administrators have ordered Arel's class ID to be publicly displayed so they can see his information for themselves. The sister consults with Arel to confirm that he is fine with the decision, and he agrees. The sister displays Arel's information on the Colosseum screens and announces that Arel is a certified classless swordsman. This wins back the favor of the crowd for Arel, and they begin to cheer for him. Lilia scolds Reiner for withholding the information about Arel's true strength, because she would have taken a higher loan to bet on their victory. Reiner confesses that she didn't know he was strong enough to progress this far into the matchup without their help. Lilia reveals that she is going to start making preparations for a marriage certificate because she wants to tie Arel down as her limitless gold factory. The sister announces that the last contender is Masamune, who is a master samurai. He takes the stage and Arel immediately notes that he possesses a katana instead of the common broadsword. Reiner and Lilia are surprised by Masamune's appearance because they have never heard of him. They realize he is their trump card, and they hope Arel can match his abilities. The sister announces the start of the battle and Masamune gets into his sword stance. Arel feels the threat from his stance, so he decides to keep his distance. Masamune commends him for seeing through his plan of luring him in and using his ultimate skill to defeat him. Arel begins to approach him, and Masamune can't understand why he is making making such a senseless decision, despite hearing his plans. Arel reveals that he has no choice but to move, because they will remain in a stalemate otherwise. Arel also reveals that he is curious about Masamune's ultimate skill, but Masamune warns him that his curiosity could be his downfall. Arel keeps approaching him as he tries to come up with a plan. He considers using his shadow strikes, but he figures out that Masamune will see through it because he is quite perceptive. He stops at the edge of his sword range and concludes that he has to be faster than his strike. He steps into Masamune's range and he strikes, but Arel disappears. Masamune is surprised because he is certain Arel didn't use an afterimage, which means he was faster than his sword strike. Arel appears behind him and commends him for being fast, but he points out that he was trained by someone faster. He uses Piercing Tempest to defeat him, and Lilia is surprised to see that he has mastered the Sword Princess technique. The sister announces Arel as the winner, and he walks off the stage. Lilia and Reiner congratulate him on his victory, but Georg silently plots his revenge from the shadows. Late at night, Dragonfang celebrates their victory with a toast. Lilia enjoys her drink, saying nothing beats celebrating after winning. Arel notes in surprise she's old enough to drink, while Reiner holds juice and accepts her situation. Lilia moves closer to Arel and boldly asks him to marry her. He refuses without hesitation. She teases him for being shy, but he insists he isn't. She continues, saying she can fulfill his desires, but Arel replies he'd rather marry someone like Reiner. Lilia is shocked, and Reiner blushes, flustered. Embarrassed, she snaps that he should have at least lied instead of rejecting Lilia so plainly. Arel calmly asks why she thinks he's lying. Reiner stammers that people say she acts like a man since all she does is train. Arel admits he once thought the same, making her sigh about lacking feminine charm. But Arel disagrees. Reiner says she aims to be the strongest swordsman and has no time for femininity. Lilia smirks. Reiner doesn't know how to use her greatest weapon, so she's no competition. Lilia tries again, offering to help Arel relax with a massage while patting his lap. Reiner blushes and calls her indecent, but Lilia pretends innocence. Arel then says he'd rather get a massage from Reiner instead, stunning both girls. Later, Reiner spars with Arel. Her attack, even with a sheathed sword, leaves him gasping. She jokes this feels like torture, but Arel explains. Pushing his body to the brink is the only way to master guts. He needs a capable, trustworthy partner. Reiner feels flattered he trusts her so much. A man walks downstairs with Lilia, telling them to keep it down. He's Lilia's father. He asks Arel if he's training from frustration after losing, but Lilia corrects him. They won against Black Blade. Her father seems unimpressed, assuming the enemy sent weak members. Lilia insists all opponents were A rank, and Arel defeated them alone. Her father looks at Arel covered in sweat and bruises, doubting he's that strong. Lilia adds they earned enough money to cover guild expenses thanks to Arel. Her father warns that bigger guilds will recruit him, leaving them behind. Lilia refuses to believe it and announces she and Arel will marry. Arel immediately denies it. Her father tells her to give up. Arel speaks up, saying even though Lilia can be silly, she's better than people who give up without trying. He asks when her father will stop moping and act his age. He can still wield a sword with one arm. Her father snaps. He grabs Arel by the collar, asking what he knows. A dual swordsman who can't wield both swords has nothing but useless skills. Arel admits he's right. He has no class or special skills either. Her father shoves Arel away and walks off. Arel comments that even with his injuries, Rod is incredibly strong, and it's a waste to give up. Lilia feels thankful, believing Arel's words might inspire her father. Reiner agrees Rod just needs to find his passion again. Arel hopes Rod will teach him someday. Lilia suggests Arel explore a dungeon to learn new skills. Arel asks what a dungeon is, making Reiner sigh. She explains there's a massive dungeon beneath the city filled with traps and monsters. Arel grows excited. Reiner agrees to join for combat experience before the Sword God Cup. When Arel asks what that is, Reiner groans. It's a grand tournament to decide the strongest swordsman. Lilia brings out an entry form saying she assumed he'd want to participate. Arel shocks them by tearing it in half. The paper is actually a marriage certificate. Arel puts Lilia in an arm lock as she yelps and apologizes. Meanwhile, two mysterious people watch through a magic orb. One asks where they're heading, the other answers the dungeon tomorrow. The first smirks. If an accident happens there, no one will suspect. A sinister laugh echoes. The next morning, Arel sleeps peacefully. Lilia sneaks in, smiling mischievously. She brags that her casual outfit will make him unable to resist. She leans closer for a wake-up kiss. Arel suddenly opens his eyes and asks what she's doing, startling her. Flustered, she tries playing it off, calling him hubby. She leans in again, but Arel pushes her face away. She yelps and accuses him of cruelty. Arel calls her a predator. Annoyed, Lilia argues she's throwing herself at him and calls him a dimwit. Errol ties her hands to the bed frame and leaves. He knocks on Reiner's door and finds her asleep, mumbling about her father and asking for praise. Amused, Errol pats her head, realizing she's a daddy's girl despite her tough exterior. Lilia's voice echoes, yelling to be untied. Rod walks in and sees his daughter tied to Errol's bed frame. Shocked, he starts arguing while Arel listens awkwardly. Errol, Lilia, and Reiner arrive at the underground dungeon. Arel is surprised by how crowded it is. Reiner explains the Sword God Cup is approaching, and many adventurers are training. A long line waits for the teleportation seal. Lilia explains it lets people instantly travel to floors they have already visited. However, it only works for floors reached before. Lilia can go to the 12th floor while Reiner can reach the 14th. Arel assumes he can follow Reiner, but Lilia corrects him. The magic won't allow it until he physically reaches that floor. Lilia insists on taking Arel herself and tells Reiner to go alone. Before Reiner can argue, Lilia grabs Errol's arm. Arel stops her, saying Reiner should come too, and she gladly agrees. Inside, they encounter 2 living armor monsters. The creatures move on their own, clanking heavily. Errol and Reiner draw swords. One charges at Errol, he